Well, I know that Mayor Quinton Lucas, who now joins us on KCMO, he didn't miss a minute of last night's Republican primary debate. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Is that right?
You know, I didn't catch all of it, but I certainly have enough highlights to know your guy, Ron DeSantis, stayed pretty quiet, and Chris Christie, another guy from New Jersey, got a lot of boos. So, it was an interesting night.
Now, what do you think? I mean, Donald Trump didn't show up, and we're kind of in this space right now where, hey, I mean, he was up a lot. He says, I'm up big in the polls. And, similar to you were up big in the polls and said, I'm not going to bother debating. So did Donald Trump take a page out of Quinton Lucas's book this year?
Well, I don't think the former president takes much of my advice, although something I appreciate is that he's the only one who continues to be able to capture kind of the populist sentiment of what's right and what's wrong in this country, right? You have Ron DeSantis who's picking a lot of kind of smaller culture war battles. Mike Pence is Mike Pence, and then Chris Christie's running like it's 2008 or something, and he's trying to be Mitt Romney in a primary. I mean, it was an interesting race. I think President Trump continues to be the clear leader, and I get the political play of not, kind of punching down in connection with these debates.
Quinton Lucas is on KCMO. Let's get to what's happening here in this city, Mr. Mayor. We saw the renderings come out for the Royals East Village option and then, of course, the North KC option as well. I assume this wasn't the first time you saw them on Tuesday, but as you compare those two and we go down the home stretch of this process, how is the mayor of the city feeling about keeping this team in Kansas City?
To take something from what I had said before, this is like looking at two different models of Maseratis. Remember my now infamous or famous line about baseball stadium's great to have, I just can't afford it, and we need to actually figure out how we'll pay for it. So, yeah, they're both beautiful. Populous is an exceptional firm, the architecture design firm. I think all of that stuff would be great. To me, I'm far, far more interested in actually, all right, what does it look like in terms of what are the costs and financial structures, whether it be in Clay County, where I have 135,000 constituents, or Jackson County, where I have 335,000 constituents. I think, the people of both communities deserve to know what the costs actually will be, what the impact will be, and ultimately I think they both get to make a choice on whether this is something that we want to spend. And so that to me is more interesting. And by the way, I'll say to everybody, no matter how pretty the renderings are, they will change a lot between now and when it finally opens. Y'all may remember KCI Airport was going to have a 2-story actual water fountain and all these other things. Things have a way of changing when you actually get the real engineering work and design in.
How much is the county and the county issues, the assessment issues, things like that, how much do you think that is hindering this ballpark from staying in Jackson County?
Jackson County is interesting, and I'm going to kind of stay in my lane, although I see many people who lump myself and Frank White together as if we're bosom buddies. I do have great respect for him. I had a chance to have dinner with him not long ago and certainly respect his baseball career too. But I think that the counties and the cities are going to, have certain different issues. And so, I do think it's probably easier to pass a sales tax renewal no matter where it is. So that might be something advantage Jackson County, whereas dealing with different jurisdictions might be a tinge easier, certainly in a small community like North Kansas City that has about 4,000 people as you're talking about going through zoning work, although certainly in Kansas City we can get big stuff done. And then I think a difference if you're comparing communities, which is something I really don't like doing, Kansas City, if you're just looking for county money, then maybe it's a wash, although I still wonder how you generate that much sales tax in Clay. But certainly Kansas City, Missouri itself can write much bigger checks with 508,000 people, a lot of economic activity as compared to perhaps our peers in North Kansas City. And that's with great respect as a guy who loves to go to Screenland on Armour and Chicken and Pickle and other such establishments there. And so, I think those are going to be the bigger things. I think the Royals are smart enough not to make it just a big personality issue, and they're also smart enough, I would imagine, to realize that issues and people come and go, but something like this that's a legacy project is something that will last far beyond what is the news of the day. So I don't think it's a huge impediment. That said, look, taxes are tough. And this, you talk to people every day, whether it's a sales tax, whether it's talking about property taxes. And I've had chats in the Northland with people in Platte and Clay County who say, I'm not liking my property tax assessment. They're not as extreme as Jackson. But, so I don't think it's an easy time ever, nor should it be, to raise taxes.
Yeah, that is true. And you note the news of the day, and obviously part of the news of the day 2 days ago when the renderings came out was this poll that suggested 70% of Clay Countyans do not want or would not vote for a sales tax to fund a new ballpark. We had on a former colleague of yours yesterday, former city councilman and now Clay County Commissioner Scott Wagner, and he thinks it's bogus from his perspective. Obviously, he's been an advocate for the ballpark going up north. You saw that poll. I guess a lot of people are wondering, where did that poll come from? Do you know where that poll came from?
Yeah, what I've said a few different times is I'm not engaged in a whodunit. I think these questions have been polled a number of times. Let me just tell you all about politics, right? There are polls being run on everybody, probably including even me, in statewide Missouri politics and all that sort of stuff all the time. So I don't know if they're bogus. It's just sometimes if people find a reason to use them, then they'll release them. If they don't, then they won't. What I would actually love to see is polls of all of the respected groups, both in Jackson County, which at least the Royals suggested the other day that they have done polling or have some data that suggests that they see a good likelihood of passage in both jurisdictions. But yeah, at first, look, I mean, I don't have a reason to disbelieve a poll that says that people don't like new sales taxes. That's like a tale as old as time. And even when we've run Kansas City tax elections, of which we have done a lot during my term, usually renewals, not new increases, people usually say, yeah, why are you doing it? Then you got to spend time, money, messaging to say why it is important and why it does matter. So, I mean, I don't know, people can say that it's all magical or bogus or whatever, but, I've as someone who gets poll tested, including by people who haven't liked me, who've thought about running against me in past races and all that sort of stuff, I think that's just a reality of it. I have no reason necessarily to disbelieve it, nor do I have reason to believe that something's going to be static forever, right? I'm a guy who was sixth place in the polls 2 weeks out from my mayoral primary in 2019. You remember those days. I ended up getting through and I ended up winning, despite what polls said at the beginning. So they're a snapshot in time, but I kind of believe the snapshot in time. I think if you saw a poll today, I'm not sure if Royals alone were the question. It passes in Jackson County today. I think if you add Chiefs on, it does. But, that's where it is. So, that's all I got on that one.
Well, what about, I mean, you bring that up and, you think about it's always easier to get a sales tax extended versus a new one. And in Jackson County, there is this 3/8 cent sales tax that's split by the two teams out there, the Royals and the Chiefs. So there's still this big gap. I mean, from what we know, and there hasn't been a ton of clarity on this, but the Royals are asking for $1 billion. They're going to chip in $1 billion. They'll get $1 billion, hopefully, from taxpayers. But if you do that math, I mean, I think this 25-year deal that started back in 2006 was going to get each team about $400 million. So if you extend that, I don't know how the Royals get to the $1 billion number. So have the Royals talked to you about the city chipping in a large sum of money to keep them in Jackson County?
I think, and that's why this becomes, in some ways, a more interesting conversation. I think if the Royals are looking at Kansas City, staying in Kansas City proper, I think there's going to be a not insubstantial, or I could just cut out a word and say a substantial ask to Kansas City itself. I think there will also probably be, regardless of the two places, a substantial ask to the state of Missouri. I mean, I think we're just talking math. I'm not talking any type of confidential stuff and all of that. But, I would think if you look at how things like the Power and Light District were done, how T-Mobile Center, including some of the surrounding areas, was done. Granted, that's just a city project. But I think that, you're looking at something that is a little more extensive, whether that be from something like tax increment financing, which, of course, help generate revenues to help pay for both Power and Light District, actually Country Club Plaza parking garages or beyond. I think you look at that as a tool. That's what I don't quite see as the tool that is filling a several $100 million gap in North Kansas City. But, maybe they have, other ways to address that purely. But, I think that there will be ongoing conversation with the city of Kansas City, if they're looking to come to Kansas City, as to how the 508,000 residents of the city proper are helping fund this as well.
And do you have then concerns under that scenario? I mean, considering we're talking about an entertainment district attached to a ballpark, and right now the entertainment district that's only a few blocks away is costing the money, Power and Light, that being, $25 million a year?
I don't actually. I mean, here's the thing about more activity downtown. The more activity downtown you have, the better. Someone probably 25 years ago would have said, if we ever develop a Power and Light District, we're going to decimate Crown Center. And then somebody else a few years later would say, if we ever actually have Crossroads development and there's a tip down there, then we'll decimate Crown Center and the Power and Light District. None of that happens. I mean, more activity, more connectivity in downtown Kansas City is going to fundamentally be a good thing. I'm not someone who believes that there's only so much that we can do. I think a fuller downtown is a great thing. If you go to places like Dallas, Denver, and beyond, where you have continued to see booming amounts of more and more activity in more commercial areas, it builds up more revenue long term than it does the opposite. So, I don't have a concern. That said, and again, I love this issue because people on my left and on my right and everyday people don't care about it. This is why I don't think the poll is actually bogus. A lot of people say, why are you spending money on this? Right? No matter the jurisdiction, we need roads and schools and all these other sorts of things and lower taxes, I hear from a lot of people on left and right. And I think that's where the conversation is going to be. I think everybody, this is where I would agree with the Clay County poll. I think if not a majority, a good number of people say, yeah, we'd love to have a new stadium. I'm the same way. I love a new stadium. It's just, how do you pay for it? Therein lies the question. But more entertainment activities, more stuff is good for Kansas City. It's just, are we ransoming off our third child in exchange for?
He is the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas. It is going to be a very interesting next few weeks ahead of this decision by the Royals, and we're always grateful for the time, Mr. Mayor. Have a great weekend. Appreciate you being here.
Hey, take care, everybody.
You as well. That is Quinton Lucas on KCMO.